Aloha and welcome to Stargate to Cosmos. I'm your host, Jennifer Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha. This is Revolution Radio Studio B. Got to get my mic out. Set that up. And today, as our producer is Thomas Becker, a mad painter, and today our guests are Berit Stover and Beth Mund, and they are co-authors of the new book, Living Beyond Fear, Sacred Letters from the Afterlife, in which they share 21 of the many full sacred letters that have been transcribed through automatic writing to the souls of those loved ones and strangers. They were astonished when these letters, sacred letters, began streaming through them with such profound and clear messages that speak to the universal themes of our human experience, including grief, addiction, change, and fear. These messages are healing, empowering, and inspiring, helping us to connect and live more fully. And they continue to receive these messages and discuss them on social media and during the interviews. So if you want to ask us questions, Thomas Becker, our producer, a mad painter, will feed them to us. That will work. And so before I bring on Berit and Beth, Dr. Lessin, aloha.
Yes, so this is a really interesting chance to have some experiences. As our guests read the letters, let yourself identify with each person's story and see if there's a part of you that resonates.
Excellent. So welcome, Berit and Beth. I'm not sure which one of you would like to go first. So, Popcorn, whoever wants to speak first.
Hi. Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Janet and Sasha, so much for. Can you hear me? Okay, for having us on and letting us share these sacred letters. I think what's kind of interesting, maybe, is to kind of go back a little bit and just share a little bit about Beth and myself and how we actually came to meet and how we came to, upon these sacred letters. So. Just to give you a little background, both Beth and I actually just met in 2016. We were introduced by a mutual friend who knew that we were both connecting with spirits, and she introduced us, and kind of shortly thereafter, we had a kind of an aha moment. We discovered that we could actually connect with the same spirit. I remember being at Beth's home, and I was sitting on one side of the living room and she was on the other, and someone had asked us to connect around someone that neither of us knew, and we were sitting for probably about a half an hour just taking notes of what was streaming through us separately without talking with one another. And then when we started at the end, when we shared the notes, they were eerily similar. So that was our aha moment, oh my gosh, we can connect around the same person. But what was even more profound, Janet, was that we started to receive full sacred letters. We kind of discovered that we were the missing piece for one another. So I'm almost like the scout. I can kind of see these spirits gathering, always on my left side. I hear on my left side, but almost as if they're on a stage. And I can see when a spirit is to go center stage, and I know that a letter is to come. And Beth is like the transcriber. She's kind of like a court stenographer. And these letters come through pages, like 7 pages in maybe 10 minutes. And she is sitting at her computer and just typing as quick as she can everything that's flowing through her, which is the automatic writing. So we started receiving all these letters and really didn't, in 2016, and really didn't know what to make of it all. And then sometime in 2017, I had a dream. And in my dream, I was told that these are to be called sacred letters. That's where the name came from, and that they were to be shared. And so in September of 2019, Beth and I selected 21 letters. We have about 80 to publish in our first collection. There's going to be other books, but for the first book, these beautiful letters that are full of inspiration, they're empowering, they're give us guidance. They are each person that's coming through, each loved one, although I'll have to say we have more than just people who passed. We've channeled an archangel, we've channeled a dog, we can talk about something. We channeled a woman who was in a coma, but each one has their own story, and they're just full of such love and an expanded kind of knowing. Not that people know when they pass everything, but they have a greater consciousness, a greater expanse and a vantage point from which to share that information. So we, in this first collection, in this book, Living Beyond Fear, Sacred Letters from the Afterlife, we've provided people with these beautiful letters. We've put a short introduction before each letter, a little bit about the circumstances for how that individual, that soul came into our awareness. And then these letters that are word for word transcribed by Beth, that are full of energy, full of divine guidance for helping us to live more fully and abundantly in this life. So that's kind of our story.
Questions. Can you hear me? I just switched mics. I want to make sure it's working. You can hear me?
I can hear you better, yes.
Yes, thank you.
I had a lot of questions. You said there was somebody in a coma. Let's go with what you think is the most important one for us to know first. This kind of reminds me of messages from Michael's, which was people using a Ouija board, but you're actually getting it. Okay, so go ahead. Tell us the most important one, the one to start with, to kind of lay the foundation of where we need to go in the 2 hours of this show.
So, hi, it's Beth. So we feel that these letters are like our children. We don't have a favorite. People say that. But one letter channeled from Deborah was especially instrumental for us because it put us on the path to honing in that this was our mission. This is what we needed to do. And how it came through was unbelievable to me. I was a skeptic most of my life. I didn't believe in prayer. I struggled believing in God. I had some trauma and abuse in my background that led me to feel that way. And so when I began my spiritual journey, my spiritual journey truly began when I lost a child in a late-term pregnancy. And what I went through, the grief I went through, opened me up. It was very difficult, but it opened me up, and I began connecting and learning and growing and having out-of-body experiences and having going to the Akashic records and having all these amazing experiences. And then I began hearing and seeing spirits, and it unfolded over time for me. And when Deborah, what happened with her the night that she came into my awareness was I was laying in bed. I was home. It was about 11 o'clock, and my husband was out, and I heard this loud train whistle going through my living room. It was unbelievable because I don't live anywhere near a train, and I did not know what was going on. So I went into the living room and I looked around thinking, was that some sort of music or a kid's toy? Which didn't make sense, but your mind starts to try and make sense of things when out of the normal experiences happen. So I looked around, I didn't see anything. I thought, well, that's strange. And I got a little spooked, but then I went back to bed. And then it happened again about 5 minutes later. And then I got spooked. So I called my husband and said, you got to come home. I'm hearing things. I hear train whistles going through our living room. This is absolutely crazy. And so he came home and, he sort of laughed a little bit, said, that sounds a little crazy. I said, yeah. So the next night it happened again when he was there. It happened twice, just like the first whistle, just like a train whistle blows twice in a row. And Berit and I had been connecting back and forth, text messages text messaging and talking just in general about spirituality and opening up our awareness and helping each other. And we started to talk about this happening. And I said, this might sound crazy, but someone I know passed from a train accident. And do you think that she contact us? And then we both began connecting around her and realized she was connecting with us. And we said, wow, these messages need to come through, and we can't deny this is happening. And so we began, Deborah, and communicating. We both felt her. The way I can see an image, I can see a movie, I can see pictures that the spirit is trying to show me. I can hear things from them, phrases, songs, information that they're trying to let me know that the spirit is who they are coming through. And then I can also hear, and then I also sit and can transcribe the letters. So Deborah's letter.
She was training you. She was training you.
Yes.
Training you.
Exactly. She was exactly like, and she was like that in real life. She was a bit. Yeah. And then her letter came through. And her message. Yes, her message. Sorry. Her message was about enjoying life to the fullest and to not look at how she passed, but look at how she lived. And to, it's not another phrase that sticks in my mind from her. It's not about how long we're here. It's about, so it's not about quantity. It's about quality. It's how you spend your time. Are you happy? Do you have regrets? Are you living the life that you're meant to live? And she said she had no regrets, that she passed in her 40s, and the life she wanted to live, and lived every moment and felt so much love, and she was truly happy. And that was her message.
Did she want you to contact anyone in specific in her life, like her mother or her child or her sister or brother or something?
Yeah, she didn't come through with that information. We have contacted people who have whose letters have come through when we've been guided to. We didn't receive that from her, but we're always open. Once we connect with a spirit or soul, we feel them all the time. It's like they're closer to us after the initial contact. So we're always open if she were to ask that.
So let me just see the coherent field, something that the two of you create together is more powerful than what one of you does alone.
Yeah, we kind of figured, yes, I think we merged our intuitive energy. So we thought we would just get more information, to be honest. When we first understood that we could connect around the same spirit, we thought, well, we'll just pool our energies together. But actually what happened was, it's almost like the two pieces fit together, and we needed one another to complete the whole. Again, we both are getting information and images, but I'm almost like the scout. I can always see the people, like feel them on the stage and identify, and Beth is the transcriber. So almost like we came together as the missing piece for one another that allowed these sacred letters to come through. And one of the things that was so remarkable, again, like I was saying, that we had so many letters. So I lost two cousins in the beginning of 2017, and one of my cousins actually channeled they both have channeled letters, but one of the letters that was channeled by my cousin Peter was to both Beth and myself to explain what these sacred letters were about, to explain to us that he was stepping forward and then would make way for the next person to come, and to always be open, to always be ready to receive these letters that needed to come through. And the letters sharing, yes, it can be going to a specific person or a loved one here, but there are also speaking again to really universal messages. Like Beth was just saying for Deborah, I mean, hers was about, we entitled her chapter Celebrating Life. And one of the things she spoke to, she said, when you are tempted to try and understand death, to ask why, look at how I pass, but do not dwell on it. Focus on more how I lived. And her letter really, again, speaks to the joy of life, the whole human experience, and why we're here to experience the spectrum, right? The joys as much as the sorrows. It's a journey for our soul, and our souls continue on. And I think one of the things that we've found in talking with these different people is that our consciousness with us, that we shed our earthly form and we move into the next realm. As one young man who passed from cancer said, I took a breath, and my next breath I was in this other realm. But the consciousness, it continues into that realm. And so we're still progressing. We're progressing here, there, and we're so interconnected. And a lot of these letters really are just speaking to say we're still here, but in that human way, but in a conscious way. And our souls are still eternal. Our souls are alive, and they're connected, and they're sharing. We're almost gifting you back these beautiful messages to help awaken you, to open your awareness to all that life holds, that is such a gift. That is so beautiful, and but to go beyond things like fear and doubt. One of the other letters that came was from a Grandma Ruth, and she had a very long life here, and she came through and channeled a very profound, a very simple and short letter, but hers was beautiful, and it spoke to living fearlessly. She said, do not live your life in fear. I had lived my life in fear, and none of it came true. It prevented me from truly being present, being there as. So they're coming back and just saying, oh my gosh, the fear and the doubts that keep us limited in our experiences here, to shed that, to break forward, and to really be all that we are, the truth of who we are in this realm. And so each of the messages, we can share many different ones, but each of them is speaking to different universal truths, speaking to our human experiences of going through grief or going through addiction, going through change, becoming vulnerable, different types of things that they're using their almost personality and that experience to open us up to a much more expanded understanding of that subject matter, for instance.
If you were to be passed to the next level, and both of you, each of you were to write a letter, these two psychics, one was a scout and the other was a transcribed, take down the main things you had to say, what would you dictate for them to pass?
I think, go ahead, Beth.
No, I'm not sure I understood the question.
Okay, imagine that you died and you're passing on, and then these two psychics tuned you in, and they said, hey, what's your main message? What would you dictate something to me? What would you dictate?
I think a lot of the similar messages that are coming through us now. I mean, I think the underlying message of all of it is love. Love transcends all realms. It is a power to be reckoned with. I know from my own experience, that love has helped to heal me. I'm not fully healed, but in 2010, for instance, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I shut down, and I was bedridden for a few months, and there's so much love that came around me, and that healing power, and knowing that there's something bigger than myself. And I think those are these messages of love that can help heal us, that can help make us whole, that can empower us, that can really help us really actually remember to remember the truth of who we all are. We came here but we just don't remember we've been here before. And so that we can experience all that we have to experience. As a young woman in one of the letters said to us, it's, you don't want to know everything immediately. It's almost like if you read the last chapter of a book. You wouldn't read the last chapter of a book before you've read the whole book. So you miss out on going through the full spectrum of that experience. But I think the message that we would be sending back again is that we are so power. We are all loved. We are all worthy. We can be nothing less than that. And to embrace that and to go push beyond fears that are an illusion and push beyond self-doubt. That's an illusion. It seems so real, but when you push beyond it, as Grandma Ruth would say, don't feed the animal, and it's true. Like, when you give energy to fear, fear begets fear, right? What you put out comes back. It's all of that. And so to live life to the fullest and to know that we are one. We are so connected with one another. And what we, do to one another, it comes back, right? We see, what we dams us back. What we blesses us back. So many of us have experienced that and feel the truth of that. So I think, to answer your question, Sasha, I think you are love, that you are full of such gifts, and each of us is unique. Each of us has gifts. Each of us is worthy and loved, and to be the truth of who we are. And when we can all be our truth, we can just breathe and we can just be, and things unfold, and we feel like we're in that zone where our soul is along that path. And so each of these different messages is so profound, and it's so beautiful. The way that, and Beth can kind of speak to it, but it was interesting, the way that this book is laid out. So there's 21 sacred letters, as we mentioned, and there's 3 parts to the book. The first part is opening the mind. The second part is feeling through the heart. And the third is connecting with all there is. And there's Beth, you should share. It's a very interesting story of how we actually came up with those 3. If they weren't for...
Yes, and to answer your question, I think if I were to give messages if I were to come across 2 psychics, I would, one, say believe in yourself, and that you never know what life is going to bring. We were doing very different things, Berit and I, and life took us in the direction we were meant to go. And this is our mission. We don't have a choice. Like when I first came to receive messages, and I could receive a message when I'm, in the shower or driving or whatever. And I realized that I had to give those messages to when they came through. And if I didn't, I would anxiety, and I would not feel calm and peaceful. And then when I relayed the message, I would feel much calmer, knowing that this was what we're meant to do. Open your mind and to allow take you where you're meant to go, and to open your mind. We all have these ideas of what we're meant to do or who we are. And the challenges that come your way are the actual gifts and the beauty that life brings to you, to put you on your path. And so I would say have that confidence and have that knowing that there's a bigger plan, that being open to it is, and trusting yourself is the best thing you could do.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you would take back, Janet?
No, I want to ask more questions. I know what I would do. I have a question. God, I forgot it already. Did all the people so you found out what your life mission is, and yes. I have identified my life mission. And you mentioned, Debbie, I think it was Debbie, she felt no regret. So did discover her life mission? And have you encountered anyone that did not fulfill their life's mission before they passed?
I have encountered many people that I've connected with, or people have asked me to connect with. This one woman had asked me to connect with her mother, and she didn't have a great relationship with her mother. And I see, when I connect to the other side, I see lots of classrooms, lots of learning going on. That's one of the many things that I see. And she wanted to know if she said her mother did not, fulfill her mission when she was here, as far as she knows, but that, whether she was healing there on the other side, because we can fulfill our mission here and then we could do work on the other side. And when I connected with her, I saw her smoking a cigarette and standing outside the classroom. And she said, yes, my mom smoked. And I said, she's not going in. She does not want to go into the classroom. And, she said that's the way she was here. So we have, just like we have choice here, we have choice on the other side. And she was not choosing to do that. And we've encountered both.
Wow. And then I had a guest last week, and she said when she was out of body, she had a near-death experience. She was crushed by some horses. Spent quite a long time before she was resuscitated. She said that she had a body. Do you find that these people that are out of their body have some kind of body, even though it's a different body?
Yeah, I mean, the way they're shown to me is with their body. But what's interesting is they come to me of all different ages. So someone might have passed 60s or their 50s, and I see them in their 20s or 30s. That's the way they would like to come to me. Someone, might be a child or a baby, and they might come as a 30-year-old.
She also.
I think that they show themselves in the way that we can listen to them and hear them. It's like speaking another language. They have to present in what we will understand. And I have symbols for different things that they've shown me and given me. I know when I see a dozen roses, that's a symbol for love, so that we've developed our own language. And it's just as important how they appear to me as, as the message that they have, because it's all interrelated. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Do you have the same familiars, like the same, is there any recurrent visitors?
Yes. Yeah, like Louise Hay, she was someone that I just knew of. Had read one of her books years ago, but did not have, did not think about her too much. And then when we were developing and transcribing these letters, I walked into my room and there she was. And I don't see her sitting there in front of me, but I felt her very strongly, stronger than I've ever felt somebody, unexpectedly. And so I wasn't sure what to make of it. I went and brushed my teeth, and then I came back. She was still there. So I said, okay, like what is it? Why are you here? And she gave me the 3 parts to our book, how it was supposed to be divided out. We feel like this whole book has been guided, and we were just messengers for everything. So I jotted it down, and she has, popped in and out pretty strongly. We both have seen her, and she hangs around. So, she could be everywhere. She's not just with us. She could be, everywhere at once. But she's definitely, for whatever reason, has stayed around and helped us with this unfolding.
Oh, that's wonderful. I loved her books. I was going to ask you if you had seen anybody famous. I've had people come to me too, but I don't want to on me, but I had very unexpected. I had Michael Jackson. For some reason, I get these singers: Michael Jackson and David Bowie and Prince, and also David Carradine. And so I did the same thing, let them speak. And I kept saying, well, why are you coming to me? Why not somebody else? I'm not your family. I would think they would go to their own family, right? Or their own friends.
Yeah.
But they said that we come to you because we see that you can see us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you can see these people. So they somehow know those that are able to receive them and pull through messages. So you were saying that you sometimes have people ask you to contact certain people.
Yes.
Like percentage of your letters are those type of things, and what, how many spontaneous that people from the other side have decided to contact you?
Well, I just want to add that I have that same question. I have had famous people come to me. I just actually channeled something from Kobe Bryant. I thought, when I sense to pay attention to someone, either if they've passed or recently or not, I can feel the energy. And there's been other famous people that have passed, and I haven't really thought much about them. But this one, I was feeling the energy around him, and so I did channel something from him not that long ago. And we have a Sacred Letters Facebook page, so I just put some of it on the page. I did not channel a sacred letter. I just channeled the information of what I was seeing. I've had Jerry. Yeah, I'll tell you what he said. He was talking about happiness. Well, first I saw him. There's reasons why I'm seeing the image as I'm seeing. I don't have all those reasons because I'm not talking with someone who me, but I saw him with a long rope, the kind of rope that had in gym class that we had to climb up. That was very difficult to do, but he was climbing up the rope to go up to heaven. I sometimes see a place where there is clouds, but that doesn't stay for me. Heaven doesn't look like a bunch of clouds for me, but that's usually my entry point. And he went up there, and then he realized that his daughter was there as well, and he climbed back down the rope, and he got his daughter, and they climbed up together, and he then showed me a whole city. The only way I can describe it is, and I describe exactly what's coming through for me. Sometimes it doesn't make total sense, but it was like the when the Grinch Stole Christmas, and it was Whoville, the way all the people were just happy and going about business. And then I was brought in closer to a scene that looked like a very busy restaurant. It felt to me like a fantasy world, like when people go to Disney World and everyone is happy and there's characters and fantasy going on. And I was just, one of the things I channeled that, there was happiness, there was no fear, there was no doubt. It's just all gone away. And then he did talk to me, and I channeled a very small bit of a letter about happiness and the importance of happiness. I don't have it in front of me. I go into a trance when I do the letter, so it's not as I don't remember it sometimes because I'm in a sort of trance. But yeah, that was his letter. I've had Jerry Garcia come to me, but I haven't channeled anything yet from him. Freddie Mercury is channeled a letter from him. Yeah, he's so wonderful. Yeah. I do get famous people. And also Michael Jackson came, I channeled a letter called Black or White. Yeah. And he came to me years ago before I even did this, when I was opening up to all this. And he came to me as a child back then when he was still alive. So I can connect with the souls and the higher selves of people who are alive.
Yeah. Well, Kobe started to come to me, and I was sleeping, and he was holding his daughter's hand, and I said, "I'm too tired. Don't go to somebody else." But the next day, I got up, and I probably sent him to you. Yeah, I said,
he sent him to me
because we're in a different time zone.
yeah, I was too tired, and so then I went to see what his daughter looked like, because I hadn't seen her in real life. So I looked through and I go, oh yeah, that's what did. So I had my own verification, because sometimes you wonder, like, am I crazy or what's going on here? So this is fascinating. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say one point to that. I would agree with you. And Berit and I were at a gathering of a book group. We do a lot of books, and I started channeling people, and there was a woman who came through, and I noticed two things about her. One was her hair. It was very specific, short, very, very thick, and then she had on these shoes that looked like nursing shoes. They were very comfortable, cushiony, white. And I said, I just relayed those two things, and this woman said, I think that's my aunt. And then when she showed me a picture, I said, yeah, that's her. That's exactly what she looks like. So nice I don't like to look, or I don't like to know anything before I want to taint what comes through, but it's nice to be able to check after and get some confirmation.
What's kind of remarkable, and Sasha, you were asking about this, do we always know the people, or, how are they coming through? So some of the people we do know, like when they come center stage, I'm like, oh, I know who that is. Other people can come center stage and channel a letter through Beth, and we have no idea who they are. So we have to really be like detectives and work backwards to figure out, like, who is this? But just an example that kind of also speaks to the picture of the person too. So so there's two of the letters that are in this collection of 21. One is from a beautiful girl named Sydney, who was in her early 20s. My niece had known her in Seattle and had said, Ani Bear, can you connect with my friend Sydney? She a year after high school and gone hiking with a dear friend in Nepal. This is in 2015. And then the earthquake struck and she was lost in the earthquake. So when she said that, my niece and I were just walking in my neighborhood. And when she said that, the first thing that comes through for me is the personality. Like, I can feel the personality. It's almost like I felt like I remember connecting with her as if every cell in my body was the word cherish. If you thought of the word cherish, and every cell was just saturated with cherish. And then I heard the name Paul, which I didn't know, but later it turns out she is his brother. And but I could describe her, and I felt her, and so forth. And I said to Beth, like, I'm connected to this gal Sydney, and I feel her on my stage, but she's still on stage left, almost kind of in the wings. And Beth said, oh, well, who is the woman with the blonde braid? And again, I can exactly see who she's talking about. I'm like, no, I see her. I see this woman with the long blonde braid. She is, she's more petite. It looks like she's in her mid-60s. She's just totally different. No. I said, Beth, no, that's not who we're talking to. We're not talking to her. We're talking to Sydney, this girl. Like, I can see the difference. And so what happened next was that this woman went center stage and she channeled a letter through Beth. So now we're like, Beth and I are like, who is this woman? So, of course, you can ask. As you know, Jen and Sasha, you can ask. So I'm like, who are you? And her letter's beautiful. It speaks to our body. It speaks to how we pass in one, two, or in groups and so forth. And to get permission, if we shared the letter and we used only the first name in our book, but we would ask for permission. So we had to figure out who this woman was. And so I was given, when I asked her, who are you? I was given the stanza, the dawning age of Aquarius, which is Aquarian radio, but and I was also seeing images of Maine, and I've been to Maine since I was a child. So I'm like, oh my goodness, that's Maine. I know it. And it, like a loop, I would hear the stanza, then I would see images. And the only other thing that we could put together was that every time we connected with Sydney, that this woman appeared. So I went to my computer and I put in like Maine and earthquake and so forth. And lo and behold, there was a woman from Maine who also passed in the 2015 earthquake. And a local article came up, and I read the article. And what was remarkable were two things. One is her name is Dawn, the dawning of the age of Aquarius. So however they can kind of give us that image or that information. But what was also so remarkable was above the article about her passing was this picture that someone had taken in Nepal maybe several days before the earthquake. And there she is, her silhouette with her standing there against the cold, jagged rocks of Nepal, and with her long blonde behind her, exactly like we were envisioning her, exactly like we saw her. And so what was profound after that was like, so we like, oh, okay, you know, she's got two children, a daughter and a son, and we set about to try and find them. And it's actually harder to find people than you think. Years ago, you could find white page numbers. Now you can't find anything, you know, even with all of the internet. But anyway, so I was kind of striking out, making contact, and I said, we'll just have to change her first name. But as I mentioned in the beginning, we write like 2 or 3 paragraphs before each sacred letter for each chapter, giving the reader a little bit of background. And we did, you know, the story was just, I mean, it was exactly, you know, how it came through. We wanted to share it. So anyway, so when I was saying to Beth, I was sitting in my office in New Jersey, and Beth and I are in different towns, so we do a lot of text messaging, and I was going to just, I guess we'll change her first name, and there she is in my office. I felt her so strongly and so persistently in just imploring me to contact her children. And I said to her, then you need to help me because I'm so well connected, figuring it out. And I heard the word travel. And so I'm like, okay. So I put in travel and I put in all the other information, and it turns out her son owns a travel company in Maine. And that's how I was able to connect with the son. And that's how I was able to make the phone call, which I make phone calls and say, you know, hi, I'm Berit Stover from New Jersey. And I know it seems strange, but, you know, I've just, you know, connected with your mom. And if, you know, we just wanted to pass this letter on to you to share and honor if you wanted to have it included or not, you know, what your decision is. And they, you know, when they read the letter, they said, oh my goodness, that's my mother. And I said, well, she's so persistent. She's so beautiful, but she's so, and so her letter is just, it's just beautiful. And so then after that, Sydney came forward, and she came forward center stage, and she channeled a letter that speaks to Mother Earth. And she speaks to how, you know, we're so interrelated with one another, and, you know, what we do to our earth, you know, what we do to ourselves, we do to our earth. She said, you know, what we do to ourselves is one of her quotes. And she just a beautiful letter speaking about, you know, and it's really to the human race, you know, saying, you know, I'm here, you know, but she's giving voice to the earth. And, you know, we need to be caretakers of our earth and our animals. And, you know, because we're all infused with this absolute gorgeous divine energy, and we're all one. So anyway, so that's just a brief example of how sometimes we know the person and sometimes we don't, but we're always given pieces of information to figure it out. It may take a little time, but we always figure it out, and they're the ones helping us. You know, it's really, as Beth said earlier, so much it's just guided. I mean, it's just, are we paying attention? Are we being observant? Are we being loose and kind of open to receive what we're receiving? But we get it. We figure it. We figure it out. We feel a little like Laverne and Shirley sometimes, but we figure it out. So,
I was. You said earlier that Michael Jackson came to you when he was a young child, but he was still alive. That happened to me. My cousin, who lived 4 doors down from me, I woke up and she was standing at the foot of my bed, yet she was still alive. And then right around the same time, this old woman would come. And then there I found, my mother showed me a picture of her mother. I had never met her mother. I was very young, and I go, oh, that's the lady that stands at the foot of my bed. So back to, so you had Michael Jackson when he was alive coming to you. How was he in real life, and then he was coming to you as a young person? Do you know why he was appearing to you as a young child while he was a full-grown adult?
You know, back then I wasn't asking the questions. I was just beginning the journey. I wish I would like to have that come again so I could get more information. But I had the sense he was sharing, it was sort of a melancholy and, nostalgia for, the purity of who he was as a child. All children are pure in this sense. But it was, I would say it was probably 7-8 years ago, maybe sometime around then that I had that experience with him. And so, yeah, and I remember him playing his older songs. I could hear them in my head that he used to sing with the Jackson 5. And so I think he wanted to bring that forward, I think, to guess because of all the struggles he was having as an adult.
When he came to me, he was singing, I'll be here. Whenever you call me, I'll be here.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So to be available, which was very interesting. And I've never met him in real life, and it was just interesting. I guess souls have connections, even though we may not know each other in this lifetime.
Yeah, his song, his song Ben always somehow connects my heart to him. It's not a very popular song, but yeah, sometimes that does that. Yeah, Jerry Garcia, I haven't contacted with him yet. He's like waiting in the wings. He's
on the stage.
He's on the stage. He's been waiting, sometimes I know they're there. There was a young boy who passed that I know of also in high school, and he's waiting to channel a letter. And I've learned to put up my boundaries. I'm very good at, hang on, I know you're there, but I'm doing other things. I have to, live my life. And also there's other things coming through. So I don't worry that they're going to leave or go away. Once they come into my awareness, they seem to hang out, and no one's been too forceful.
And no one's been turned away. One of the things I was just going to add to that for what Beth was saying is that on this stage, we have so many, and in the beginning, it just seemed like everybody was coming forward. And so we actually established and set up on this visual stage in our mind's eye a deli-type machine. It's a ticket machine, and everybody gets a ticket. And they can pass the ticket amongst themselves, but then there's order. Like, it's not like everyone trying to speak to you at the same time when you can't hear everybody if everyone's coming at the same time. And that seems like everyone knows that they'll be heard. And they, it's guided on that end. So Beth and I just kind of established this beautiful turquoise and orange ticket machine, and everyone gets a ticket. So that's what we've set up at our visual stage.
Well, they will exhaust you. That's why when Kobe came forward, I said, not now, I'm exhausted. I had a neighbor who passed, and for 2 years, I was doing therapy with him. He was so distraught because when he died, he took 2 people with him. And I was talking to Dr. Lessin, Sasha, and I'm exhausted because, when you're working all night, you're not getting into your own REM sleep and doing what you need to do. So I like your system. So I guess in my own way, I said, no, I was setting up my boundaries because, they will come to you all the time, and then you don't get to do your life. Once they realize that you can.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I will say they still wake me up in the middle of the night. They still wake me up at 2. Sometimes I get up at 2 or 3 or 1 in the morning even, and I cannot fall back to sleep. And they're trying to get information through me. And that's actually when I was contacted by Kobe. It was in the middle of the night. So I'm always tired too. I can totally relate to that feeling of being exhausted. Thankfully, Berit, can keep them at bay, the other ones, but they still, when I'm alone and I'm asleep, they always come to me. That's the time that they can reach me, I guess, the best.
But your dog didn't take a ticket, did he?
Oh, yeah, you said it. Was that your dog or a dog?
So, go ahead. It was my dog.
Yeah, it was
Berit's dog.
It was Berit's dog. But I've known dogs my whole life, and I've never felt a dog like I felt Summer, who was Berit's dog. And when I first met her, I could feel oh, she's so smart. And it wasn't that she was so smart. She is smart, but it was she's so spiritually advanced. She was giving me messages from the moment I met her. And we went for a walk I had my dog, she had her dog, and I was not receiving the same messages from my dog. But Summer was giving me all these messages. She was talking to me about other people who have passed. She was talking to me about 9/11. Every time I came to her, I was floored. I am open and can connect with animals. We had connected with a horse as well. There was a message that came through with a woman whose horse was going through surgery, whether or not the horse was going to make it. And I felt the message come through very strongly from the horse. But Summer was beautiful and unique and so spiritually advanced. And that's why we decided to include her in the book. And I've connected with her the night she passed. We connected with her when she was still alive here in her body, but the night she passed, I saw her and connected with her as well.
Yeah, she's actually remarkable. She's remarkable because in the story, so my daughter, I have twins, and my daughter, Sarah, when she was 14, was diagnosed with a rare cancer, and we went through a year of chemo at Sloan in New York. And Summer message that she, her sacred letter that she channeled through Beth when she was still alive, spoke to animals and sharing space, and how our animals are so connected, and they absorb, and they are so tied to us, emotionally and so forth. But she also spoke about absorbing this cancer. And my daughter is, she is now in remission, and she's now a senior in college and so forth. And Summer passed from cancer. She was only 7 years old, but she was speaking to absorbing that cancer from my daughter, which was just profound.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, sometimes my 3 dogs I had when I was in my early 20s will come and take me to some meadow, and we play all night. We play all night, and then they return. And that happens about once every 2 or 3 years. And they go, my dogs came and got me last night. Did you ever hear anything like that? Anyway, that was interesting.
That's
okay,
funny.
We're going to be going on a break. I just looked at the clock in 2 minutes, and then we'll be back after a 5-minute break. So what would you like to say before the music comes on for our break? Before the break.
Okay. Oh, okay. So anyway, I think so. That was after the break. I would love to share one other message, but the summer again was just was profound because, as Beth said, it's receiving not only from people who have passed, but people who are here. Spirits, not just people, but actual animals. And so I think it's all of it to opening the mind that we are, connecting with our higher self. We're connecting with people's spirits, whether they're here or they're there. And that's what I think is so profound.
Yeah, I think that's the lesson that I learned too, is that they don't have to be dead to get the messages. So what would you like to cover in the second hour? You said we have we did like 3 or 4. We have so many letters we can go through.
Yeah. Well, I would love to, in the second hour, to talk about the woman in the coma and talk about our consciousness, because I think that was a truly profound letter that she shared.
Okay, that'd be great. And can you read any of the exact words that they said?
Sure, absolutely. I'll read a passage from her.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that because that kind of gives you the tone of who they are and their personality, how they express themselves. Excellent. Okay, we should be having music in just a minute here, and we are going to be back after a 5-minute short break, and we are with Revolution Radio, Berit Stover and Beth Mund. And what would you like to say, Sasha?
Oh, just some people are dying for enlightenment.
Yes. Otherwise, okay. Anyway, we're talking about the book, Living Beyond Fear, Sacred Letters from the Afterlife, which is excellent. Oh, we can get the music. Okay, we'll be back in 5. Aloha and welcome back to Stargate Cosmos. And I'm feedback. I'm your host, Anna Lessin, and I'm with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin. This is Revolution Radio Studio B, and our producer is Thomas Becker, also known as a bad painter, and our guests are Beth Stover and Beth Mund, who are authors of Living Beyond Fear, Sacred Letters from the Afterlife. And before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to go up to the donation tab on revolution.radio. And you can make your donation. We really appreciate your donation because that allows us to keep on the air and bringing you these wonderful stories and shows. Okay, Dr. Lessin, are you back?
Yeah, so I just, listeners, you got the idea. Imagine that you have passed on and you're now sending a message back to your loved ones about all the wisdom you gained. What do you send them?
Welcome back, Brett and Beth.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, who wants to share the story about the person in the coma?
I will. So Mariana is an interesting story. I had both Beth and I get messages kind of from our guides, usually in the morning. And one Monday morning, I remember receiving a message telling me that we both can speak with people or hear from people who are in comas. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And I shared it with Beth and I said, do you know anyone in a coma? And she didn't. I didn't know anyone in a coma. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And then 2 weeks later, I received a text message from a friend alerting me to this woman who I didn't really know so well, but who had had a brain aneurysm that Monday, 2 weeks earlier, and had gone into a coma. And when I thought of her, I heard in my left ear, I heard her laughing, saying, yes, you remember me, encouraging me. And I quickly alerted Beth, and within hours, we received a profound letter from her in her coma. And I'm just going to read some of the passages because she speaks to consciousness, and it's really quite profound. She's speaking about, our consciousness can go anywhere at any time with anyone. So in her letter, she says, dear children, I'm just going to read some pieces. My beautiful children, I am healing. You fear I am dying, but I am healing. Do not worry. I am here, right here. There is so much about the mind we do not understand. We have studied the brain, but the mind is different. The mind is where our consciousness goes, and it can go anywhere at any time with anyone. There is no limit or time or space either. I am healing what I could not do on my own. It is like warp speed what is happening. It would take me hundreds of years to heal what this is doing in minutes. I am floating and grounded all at the same time. It is my choice to be in or out of my body. I can fly across the room like a cartoon character or spin upon my toes. I can go in and out of body. Everyone is worried, but do not worry. I am happy. Wipe away your doubts. I have none while my body is sleeping and healing. Your doubts keep you in the box that keeps you limited. We are free, but we just don't know it. We are free to speak the truth and laugh and heal. We are free to travel through time and space. We do not have to die or go into a coma to feel this. We can do it now. We all have the power, and we've had it all along. And then one last paragraph. She's got a long letter. But this one last paragraph, which I think is beautiful. She says, we have not mastered consciousness completely as humans, as we are still tied to the brain and is keeping us in the dark, so to speak. There is so much we don't know and so much more to know. If you stop asking questions, you will not find the answers. Continue opening yourself up as humans and moving beyond the conscious mind. Do not let your jaw drop in awe when someone connects with someone's spirit who has passed, but do it yourself and know it to be the truth. Stop denying. Stop the skepticism, and you will begin to open. It can be the hard way with a crowbar or come easily if you set the time aside to connect with your higher self, to move your mind. And that's just part of a long letter that she wrote. But it's just beautiful, and it really speaks to how profound consciousness is, and how we're in thoughts, how our energy, we think of something, where our energy goes, our thoughts go, and how we create here and in other realms with our thought, with our consciousness.
Well, she mentioned how we're blocking our communication with those that are out of body. And so what do you recommend to people who want to contact their own people that have passed on, loved ones? Anything they can, what I got is that if they paid, am I on mute?
Beth, you Beth there?
Oh, yeah, sure. I can answer that. So, everyone is different what gifts they have. And what worked for me is to just begin getting quiet and going into that meditation and going into that space and asking for the messages, asking to receive the messages, asking to make the messages bold and big so that you trust what you're receiving, that there's no room for doubt. So that's how I started out. I said, show me, give me a message from someone who has passed and make it so big that I don't doubt it. And we have to get quiet in order to get beyond the mind. We have to get quiet so the noise of the mind doesn't get in the way of it, which is why very often souls who have passed come to us in our dreams, because our mind is shut down, our conscious mind is shut down, and it's much easier to reach us. And that is the same way with meditation or anything where we can get beyond our body and beyond our mind and go to that space where they can connect with us, because we have to raise our vibration in order to be able to connect with them, just as if, so they have to lower their vibration, we have to raise our vibration so we can meet somewhere in the middle.
It kind of reminds me too of
that's awesome.
A letter, Janet, that Archangel Gabriel channeled, and I see her as a she, so I always say she, but she says, open yourself up to all that you are in every moment. And she also speaks to what will unfold for you cannot imagine, but one must try, for all we see and know is all we are capable of achieving. And I think what Beth was speaking to too is that we all have a gift. We all can connect. Things that seem like a coincidence aren't, we write it off as a coincidence, but it's not. It's just things to grab our attention, to to alert us that, pay attention. And then when you do, other things unfold, and you receive things that when you believe it, you see it. You can see these things. You can start feeling them in whatever way you are meant to feel that or see that.
Sasha, do you have something to...
No, I concur. Some people are kinesthetic. Some people are visual. People get it different ways and symbol things different ways.
Yes.
Do you have any questions?
What question do you want me to ask, Janet?
Oh, okay. What's the next most important letter for us to know about? And have you either of you ever had someone that you knew personally pass, like a parent or a sibling or a child?
So I think for both of us, there's a few of our different loved ones in here. One of the messages, as I mentioned earlier, I lost two dear cousins in the beginning of 2017, and one was Peter. Actually, there's two letters from Peter. One where he actually explained to us what the sacred letters were about and so forth. The other one that he spoke to was healing from addictions, and he passed from an addiction, but he speaks to that there's nothing to fix but everything to feel, and it's just a beautiful, loving letter that we all are going through. All of us go through life with holes, H-O-L-E, in whatever way that is. We forget our wholeness, W-H-O-L-E, and how to bring us back into wholeness from so many different ways. And he speaks to, first, the self-reflection, to reflect back on things, not that you have to dig up and regurgitate it and go over and over and berate yourself for things of the past, but to acknowledge things and then to release it. And then the second piece is the feeling, that we just need to feel our way through it. And so many times I think that these holes that burrow in us are when we are trying to push it aside or suppress it, and instead of allowing it to go through it so that we can to release what is not ours. And his letter is just beautiful, and it's so encouraging to all of us who are going through things, or loved ones that we know that are struggling through their challenges. So that's one of the letters.
And also, I had I mentioned earlier, I had a stillbirth back in 2004, and I connected with my son. He didn't channel a letter, at least not yet, but so he's not in the book, but I have connected with him. And he came to me in his 30s, around there sometime. So I was surprised when I first connected with him, and that's how he showed himself to me. But I had been, I asked for, I just connect with him and see if there was any information, or just to be able to connect. And I had been bowling that weekend before with my husband and my two daughters, and he came to me and he showed himself in the middle of my husband and I with his arms around the two of us, and it was in the bowling alley. And so he was letting me know that he was there, and then he also let me know that he was only supposed to be around for those 9 months. He was not. That was his contract. That was his soul contract. And he explained to me a little bit about soul contracts and how we all have them. And part of it was, when we go through such intense grief, it opens us up to things we're not, we may not have been open to before. But usually when someone, and no matter what, I spoke about this before, no matter what age they pass, that they're meant to pass at that age. And that was the message that he said.
I think too, on the grief, just if I can add one thing to what Beth was saying, one other letter, there's several in here that touch on grief, and we've all experienced grief, people that we've loved, and we grieve so deeply, I think, because we love so deeply. One of the letters that we included in this collection is from my cousin Keir, and Keir passed again in 2017 from cancer, and I was actually with him when he passed, and actually, about maybe it was 2 days before his memorial service, and he transcribed a letter that he asked to have it read at his memorial service. He was saying, what better way than break tradition and write your own eulogy, write your own letter. And it's just beautiful And so in that chapter, we've entitled his chapter, Transcending Grief. And Keir says, find a way to go on each day to survive the grief until the one day when you begin living again. And then feeling joy once again, this is how I want you to be. But his is just beautiful. And I read the letter. It was, he was very much connected to Japan. He had spent time in Japan, and he has a lovely wife, Japanese wife, and his service was at the beautiful Harakone Estate in Saratoga, California, high up over the beautiful trees, and it just was so serene, and so many loved ones there. And to read his letter to his family and friends, and saying, I'm honored and humbled by your presence today on what could be a somber day filled with sadness and grief. But I ask you a favor today. I ask you to look upon what I've experienced and will continue to experience with honor and grace. And as you had to bear witness to both the wonder of life and the cruelty of death, always remember that I have been given the greatest gift in living upon this earth. It is not quantity, but quality that matters. For one can live to be 100 and have opened another hearts, but only once. Or one can live 1 year and open the hearts of hundreds. And then his letter goes on. But it's just beautiful, and was really a profound letter to share with all of the loved ones there at the service.
How do the loved ones receive that? Do you ever encounter some loved ones that don't believe that that's real, and they might say, they feel insulted, or is everybody receptive to this concept?
I don't know. I think everyone's on their own journey, and wherever they are is exactly where they are. And
right.
We don't try to, convince anyone. I did have quite a few people who I don't even know who came up and thanked me for that, and the words, I think it just needed to sink in, and they seem to resonate and to ring true. But again, Beth and I say, we pass the messages on. For me, in 2016, I was better with my MS, but then I had a relapse, and one day I kind of shut down again and was hospitalized with acute situation. And I was put in the hospital, and 3 days later I had had an MRI, and I was just on Tylenol and an anti-inflammatory drug. So I wasn't out of it, but I had an out-of-body experience. I could see myself on the tray in the MRI, and I was taken to many different situations, all on my left side. I saw people that I had seen before that had come to me and give me messages that I didn't always give. And I was told, you were a messenger. I remember asking these angels, I had gone down this long portico, and I turned to my left into brilliant nothingness. And there was up or down, it was all just filled with light. And there was this long table, and there was a big book on the table, which I didn't realize till later was the Akashic Records. And there were 4 angels along one side of the table, and at the end was another angel at the end of the table, and it was the angel of truth. And I remember asking their names, saying, I don't always remember names. And it was the angel of compassion and patience and kindness and grace. And they said, you're a messenger. And I said, how am I going to give messages to people I never knew here, let alone there? And they said, we will always give you that one piece of information, which they have done. And they told me things in 2016 that have since come true. It's 2020 now. And before I came back, and then many other things happened that were there was no time. And it seemed more real than my life here in New Jersey. It seems real. I mean, it's just unusual, just surreal. And but before I came back into my body, I made a vow that I would give the messages, and I felt the presence of Jesus, and I said, and I vowed that I would give the messages, and I heard, they're not for you, but to be given with great love and care. And so Beth and I give the messages, and we do the best in the most loving, gentle way, or the best way we can, but we deliver the messages. We ever since that situation in May of 2016, now don't hold back on the messages. And the more that we've been, since I've met Beth, and the more that we've been doing it, is like the more that comes through. And it's just profound. And we're getting letters faster and more, it's more fluid, and things that seem again that and it's really just from our perspective, right? Because we think, oh, it's just our, we happen to be there, but no, it's how things are aligning, that they're being guided into our path so that we're receiving that information. And it's where we go and what we do, and it's kind of what Louise talks about, to stay present, to stay attentive to your intuition. And when you feel things, or you're nudged to go do things. So I remember, if I can give an example of one morning I was, went to the grocery store to get berries. Well, I don't need berries. I have berries in my refrigerator, but I felt very strongly that I needed to go, and I was in the produce section, which seems to be where I get a lot of messages, not in the cereal section or anything else. It's always in the produce section. And I ran into this woman. She came up and she said, "Berit, I heard you had this gift, and I wondered if you could connect with my husband." And I immediately felt her mom. And I said, "Is your mom passed?" And she said, "Yes." And I was getting the personality and pieces of her mom. And then I felt her husband, and gave her some messages. And I was sharing with her that Beth and I were working on this book, and we're going to be publishing, our first collection. There's going to be other books, but this is the first one. And then when I got home, I shared with Beth, and within that afternoon, this beautiful letter from her husband Frank came through, that spoke to she spoke to his grief, but spoke to what our contract is to one another. And anyway, just so again, we think, oh, it's just a coincidence or whatever, but we're guided. And Frank, speaks to surrendering control. He says, we have control over choices to fly or to flee. And his was just beautiful. And it really was another, each one is just breathtaking. It's hard to, as Beth said in the beginning, that to choose, because they're all so worthy, and they all are underscoring something that's so important for us to hear. But we, just only wanted to include 21 in this first book. So we tried to choose different ones that could really speak to people with what they're going through. And whether it's grief or, some of these experiences of addiction or change. There's a beautiful one on change from, that speaks to, the change is always happening, but it's really, there's so many gifts. And sometimes when we go through those greatest challenges that we struggle with are actually our biggest leaps for our soul. So each one is beautiful. And I think how the book is laid out too kind of takes, you can jump around. People don't have to read it. You can jump around from letters to letters, but it just how it's laid out actually opens people up. If they feel like, oh, how am I going to connect? How am I going to hear? Because everyone can connect, as we all know. But the book, how it kind of takes the process of opening the mind, feeling through the heart, and connecting, actually takes the reader on a journey to open them up to receive. And the feedback we've received from readers is that they feel empowered, and they can feel like they can connect. They're feeling that energy of the letters. They're feeling that inspiration. They're feeling that connection, and it's opening them up to be able to have their own connections, because we're all connected. It's just, as Sasha said, we're all connected in different ways, and it's just finding what is the way that you can get into that, on that path or that zone, to tap into all that's around that you cannot always see, but is there. So they're just beautiful.
Also, I wanted to answer
Sasha.
your question. I was just gonna answer your question real quick. What?
Okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I sometimes I've given messages to people, and they listen to them, but they're not necessarily ready to hear them. it's hard. Like Berit said, all we can do is present them with the information, but they're not always ready to hear it. It might be healing for them. I gave this woman a message, and she told me she kept crying and listening to the message, and it was a very loving message about what she was doing with her volunteer work and how amazing it was, but she was really upset by it, and because it was healing, because sometimes healing creates us to move, and that creates sadness, or things are brought up, or things that are difficult for us to hear. So we do have to give sometimes messages. We received a message in a reading that we had from a woman whose father had died from physical complications, and he was concerned about the amount of her alcohol intake. And he made it very clear in the reading a number of ways about it. And we let her know, and she was confused at first as to why she was hearing that, but then she did admit to some of the ways she had been drinking and so on. So I've come across all three. People are ecstatic and amazed and so appreciative. People are, want to think about it, and it takes time to process sometimes these messages, especially if they get a personalized sacred letter. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to hear from a loved one who passed, and then to hear as much as we provide for people. I think people, need time, and then some people are just not ready, and they say, "Well, I don't know if that's. How do you know that's really the case?" I'm sure you've come across that too, Janet, in talking with people. Some people are just not ready to go there.
Yeah, I really haven't gone to your level where I deliver messages to people. I just keep it to myself because I haven't done what you've done. It's like, oh, they're going to just think I'm crazy, that I'm really not getting. But I've had validation from things that would come true and correlate. But I think early on, about 20 years ago, I tried telling somebody, and he just looked like I was crazy. Sasha wants something to say.
Well, I just wonder if in the past you have, or if you're currently doing, or even if you could do it right now, invoke deliberately a request and say, Jesus or Buddha, I got some stuff I'd like to ask you, and can you bring them down, or have you already, or do you regularly? Bring Kuan Yin or John Lennon or some sage like that into our lives.
I do see a gentleman with short black hair. He is somewhat of a young gentleman. He has round glasses. He does not look like John Lennon, but he has glasses very much like him. I have never, been able to invoke someone, to that level on demand, but I guess anything is possible. I don't know do you see that man, Berit?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I do.
Do we know? Does that ring a bell with either one of you?
So describe him again. He's young. How old is he? About?
Somewhat young. I would say he's in his 20s. I say he's in his 20s.
What energy is he exuding? What is his being transmit by his very being?
I do feel he's related to the music industry, which is not surprising because we've been talking about it. It's definitely not John Lennon, but he looks to me like that from the 60s, that kind of haircut.
Why are you laughing? No, I'm not. I don't know, but it might come to me later. I
Sounds like me.
Sounds like who?
Maybe I'm channeling your higher self.
Yeah.
I love it.
I don't know who. It'll come to me later.
I sense he's got like a lightness to him. He definitely enjoys music, because I feel like
reflective. He's kind of a thinker.
Yeah. Well, we had a young man who lived here on the property, who passed at 26, but he looked very young, and he had dark hair.
Oh,
and he wasn't a musician. He was very he had a strong personality. Everybody was drawn to him.
Yeah.
And on the property for a while, but he moved away right before he passed so he could reconnect with his family. He had been away from his family, and I told him, go connect with your family. They need to have, your last few months with them. So he did. So it's possible that he's around.
Okay.
He had care. Very strong personality, though. Everybody was drawn to him. He wasn't a musician, but he was charismatic.
Okay. Did he do any creating of any kind?
He could do web design and art and graphics, and he liked to sing karaoke.
Okay.
On his computer, so he could record his karaoke singing.
That's funny. Yeah.
You lift me up. He sang it with everything in his being, and it's recorded. It's probably still out there. I don't think I should mention his name though, because I don't know. He might be upset.
Yeah, I do feel like it's probably him that's coming through, because I get the creative piece as well.
Yeah, he's still. Everybody goes on his Facebook. I mean, he's been dead 10 or not 10 years. He's been dead about 5 years, and they always put stuff like, "Oh, we miss you,"
and they feel it, right? I mean, there's still so much a part of us, and it's just in a more of an expanded way. That they can be in many places. There's no limit to there's no geographic limit. There's no language barrier, and they can come and they can connect with so many of us. But it's are we kind of open to that, and each person has to see, discern, what are you feeling, and what is resonating and what's not, and so forth. But when you connect with it, it's just like we are still so connected. It's just we're experiencing different realms. We're in different but we're still energy. We're just in different forms, I guess, if that you will.
Yes, and so he's kind of laughing right now. I kind of get what's going on. He's laughing.
He is. Yeah, I feel it too.
I think he feels honored to be brought in the discussion.
I often thought he would try to communicate eventually. I've had a number of people that have been through, we were doing a healing retreat center for years and years and years. So a lot of people that have been connected to this land will come and stop by. There's a woman, are you picking up on any? There was this woman, a very strong, charismatic person, just like the man. But she was older, but she had this youthful energy. Anyway, she'll come to me periodically.
I saw when you said that. Is there anyone else? I saw a woman, but she had gray hair. I don't know if she.
No,
I'm seeing some woman with gray hair that's pulled back in a bun.
She would never let her hair be gray. Never. She always looked like a goddess.
Oh, that's funny.
Not me.
Yeah, I'm seeing a woman with gray hair and it's pulled back into a bun. I don't know who she is. Someone else coming through.
Who's coming through now? Let's see. Do you have anybody now that we've been opening all the portals that has messages for our people here? And anybody in the chat, if you want to ask a question, the Mad Painter is monitoring our chat for us. But are you two picking up anybody else? Oh, and I was curious why they come on the left. For me, they always come on the right.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's everything's on my left. So if I hear something or all my experiences when I was out of my body, everything, I went to the left side. So I can't answer why that is, but it's everyone's on the stage on the left, and it's just the way it is. So I don't understand it, but that's how it works for me. Beth, I think you're...
Okay. Sasha.
Living.
Okay, he's living. Okay. So you mentioned there were a lot of. I'm over here in Maui, Hawaii, and there was a battle on this land here and directly around us. And people who visit our land often pick up, Hawaiian indigenous people. Are you picking up? So the gray-haired lady, I've seen her. I woke up and I was writing my journal when I first woke up, so I was wide awake and I'm writing in my journal, and she floated right past my window. So she's very strong. She could manifest. She looked solid. She didn't even look like she was, a ghost. But then she floated up the hill, so she defied gravity. So I knew it wasn't a person walking because this person floated up the mountainside. But a lot of people report of this woman with gray hair. I've never seen her with it tied up, but it makes sense that it was very long.
Yeah.
She might tie it up sometime.
Mm-hmm. Her face reminds me a little bit of Katharine Hepburn. For some reason, like that's the name that came to me. It's not her because I don't feel in any sense that it's her.
I see her like the period of dress is like it's like a longer skirt or something. So it's
like a long dress. It's like that.
Yeah. So it seems like it's
earlier times, like colonial times.
Yeah, it seems like it's dated in a past century.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw her with the long dress or something as well. So that's interesting that you're picking up on her. Anybody else coming through? Anybody else come through right now? We are receiving messages from beyond. Maybe somebody has a message for someone that's listening on the show.
Somebody who's listening. I do see a gentleman with red hair, very red curly hair, like pretty long. Not long, but like a lot of hair on his head. Like the red hair is standing out to me, and the way it looks and the texture of it. But it could be. I tuned into my Facebook, and the first message I got this morning was from one of my Facebook friends. Not to me that I have like 5,000 friends. I don't know everybody personally, but they said that last night my son killed himself, and he had the red hair. What's he trying to tell us? Is he how old? He seems somewhat young.
30.
Yeah.
His brother had killed him at 30 as well.
Oh gosh.
And you hear that sometimes. And it was addiction related.
It was
drug overdose.
Oh, love to them.
Let me see if there's any message coming through.
His brother.
What's that, honey?
He wanted to be with his brother.
Yeah, he wanted to be with his brother.
How is the woman doing?
I don't know. I just saw it like, I woke up real early, like you said, when someone trying to get through.
Yeah.
So I try to sleep till sunrise, which is like 7 now, but it was like 5:30. So I'm wide awake. And then I got my iPad out, and it was right there. And I went, oh, how sad. And I said a little prayer, and then I got on with my day. I got a cup of tea and stuff like that. So didn't think of it until right now. And you're saying somebody came through with red hair, and he was a very handsome young man in his 30s. He was 30. The mother said he's 30, and his brother died at 32, both from overdoses. So and then we just said we want to talk. So I think that was. I don't know if I could find it. That's so long ago. I get so many messages on my Facebook. But, okay, so you don't have any more messages. Now, I think Ahmad was saying, Thomas was saying, somebody was trying to say something in the chat. Okay, let me see if I can see that again. I'm not real good at negotiating all these things on. Oh, it popped up and now it disappeared. Okay, sorry, I'm not seeing it, but somebody wanted to know, are there any overall messages for us from, okay, so you still have a number of letters. Anything in any of your very profound that you think we need to tell our listeners? Because there's a lot of people listening right now, and they're going to be listening in the, this gets recorded, and then I put it out far and wide. So somebody might be listening at this, to this 6 months from now, but it's going to be relevant no matter when you're listening. Is there anything that we need to convey to the people that are listening now or in the future that'll be important at the right time?
I think
what about your letters? Yeah, go ahead.
What were we going to say?
Any of your letters that you're drawn to read anything from or convey of the 21 letters.
Yeah, I'll let you read one. But before you read a specific, I just want to say that overall, people have talked about how all the messages have really helped them overcome fear, that our world is very chaotic. We have a lot going on between the natural disasters, politics. There's so much that we have to deal with on a regular basis, and then our own individual challenges. That the letters as a whole just are grounding with the amount of energy, and that they really do help people overcome fear. And one I'm going to let Berit read from it, but the one that I'm thinking of is about loving within the chaos.
Yes, absolutely.
And that is, it speaks to being able to find the light within the chaos, find the love within the chaos, that no matter what tragedy we go through, whether it's fires or shootings or whatever it is, that there's always helpers, that seek out those helpers and know that that's always in the aftermath of any tragedy that unfolds. And also, it can feel overwhelming. You think, what difference do I make? How can I make such a difference? The world is so huge, and I'm just one person. But one of that letter spoke about loving yourself. Just start with yourself. Start with being kind to yourself and compassionate. We're also hard on ourselves. So love yourself, be kind to yourself. And once you are able to do that, then you can open up and share that love with other people. And if we all did that in the world, our world would look very different.
Yes, I think that is just a beautiful letter. And it was actually channeled not by one person, but it was channeled by a whole group of people who passed in a plane crash. And I think I was mentioning earlier how we installed this ticket machine, and I was remarking to Beth that usually it's like one spirit, and when I looked on my stage I could see a whole group of people, and they all had the number 1, and then they collectively went center stage and channeled a letter through Beth. And what came through was, it speaks to, as Beth said, it's we entitled the chapter "Loving Within the Chaos." But I'll just read, it's a long letter, but I'm just going to read part of it. But it says, "To all souls living through the darkness, there is a tendency to look outside of ourselves to see how we have progressed, to look to others for their approval and opinions. But when we do that, we lose our ability to come into our own knowing and power. This is also true if we look upon the world to see how evolved our world has become. Looking out upon the world, we can see chaos, turmoil, hatred, and fighting. We turn on the news and see mass shootings, out of control fires, and constant fighting within the political arena. We are not denying all that is happening. It is right there in front of us each and every day. It is across the world and right next door. The worst of the darkness comes just before the light dawns. Can you seek out the peace, joy, and love that are hidden within the chaos? We need to look for the pockets of light that are spreading throughout the world. Look for those pockets rising up from the ashes. It is in these pockets of space that we need to fill with love. Spreading love is your mission. It is all of our mission. How do we best fill these pockets of space with love? We need to ask and wait for an answer. When Mother Teresa traveled the world feeding the poor and hungry, She did not look for those she could not reach, but followed her mission guided by her heart and walked her path. The reason we become lost and do not know our mission is because our vision has clouded over from looking at the world and seeing how overwhelmingly chaotic it has become. We must become aware of what can get in the way of our mission of spreading love. Beliefs of fear, doubt, worry, lack, these are illusions, and we must not let them get in our way of loving within the chaos and finding these pockets. When our minds go to what we cannot change, we must understand that this is interference. We must discard these thoughts, as they are part of the darkness and do not help us in any way. Believe that you can see past obscurity, and you will. It is not just in the moments that we can see change, but in the hours, days, and years. And it goes on, but it's just a beautiful about loving within this darkness. And as Beth said, it's always, there's always light after the darkness. You think of all that's unfolding in our world, and all the tragedies and our things that make our heart break, but we see people coming to the aid. We always see helpers. We always see people connecting with each other, reaching out for each other, surrounding each other with love. And it's in those pockets that we need to grow and expand that love. And this is a beautiful letter that speaks to that.
Wow, lovely. Sash.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so you mentioned at some point that you had some kind of prophecies or prophetic things. Do you have any insights on what's going to be happening in 2020? What about this coronavirus? What about the political elections arena? Do you have any ideas what's coming up?
I don't so when I receive information, it's usually for very, very specific. I had gotten information that there was going to be some sort of, it was in a dream that there was going to be some sort of shooting going on. And then it was 2 days later that the shooting in Seattle occurred. I take these feelings, prophecies that I get pretty seriously. They don't come all the time. They don't come every day. It's usually not in like a wide political sense, although I do think that I got a sense at the turning of the year, the new year coming, that things were going to be easier, that people were holding on to. I had been writing about this on Facebook, that people had been holding hiding them from the world, hiding who they really are, hiding behind social media, not behind social media, but just hiding, presenting themselves in a certain way that wasn't always true, and that a lot of those masks are going to come off, that people are going to be able to show their true self, to express their true feelings, to not have to hide it, and there's going to be a lot more acceptance of people for who they are. People are waking up. A lot more people are waking up. They're becoming more spiritually aware. We're aware of each other. So things are going to become easier this coming year. It doesn't mean that, a political figure is necessarily going to move out necessarily, but the overall feelings and overwhelm is going to ease up for a lot of people, and that I did get.
Yeah, I think also that there's just been a lot of things, if you think about it, in the last year, 2 years. I mean, just so much is happening so rapidly. There's so many movements, so much is bubbling to the surface to be kind of released. And all that darkness can't exist in the light. So things are, even though it's chaotic and there's turmoil, it's coming. It's being like raised up. It's being shown. It's being brought into the light, and so it can be dealt with and to be and released. And it kind of reminds me again of something that I think it was Grandma Ruth that spoke about how she's talking about the foundation, like earthquake, like earthquake, and she said I'm just going to read this passage. We need to let ourselves fly to see what we are capable of, to truly know ourselves in the eyes of our soul. Even if we fall, it is better than not trying. Life will bring you much to conquer. This is the truth. But can you move and continue in the face of fear, even if it shakes your foundation like an earthquake? Can you step aside the rubble and see what needs to be rebuilt? What can be saved and what needs to be tossed aside? There is nothing more disruptive than an earthquake shaking up the ground, forcing those to start from a new world, a different place, shaking up the foundation. That is what is going on in the world today. It is like pulling the carpet out from under our feet, shaking up fear, hatred, and evil. Can we land on our backs? We can land on our backs, but then that is exactly where we need to be. It is the closest way to get us to our knees, where we surrender to all we are and will be, and ask for strength to face our fears head on. So go out and live fearlessly. You are not alone. So
That's
that was
lovely.
That was Grandma Ruth giving her
Grandma,
pearls of wisdom, right?
what do you think, Grandma Ruth? Grandma Ruth, where did she live? What was her story?
She was my
Do you know
grandmother.
much about her life?
Yeah. She happens to be someone that we did know. Like we said, there's people we don't and people that we do know in our book. She was someone that we do know, and interestingly, she lived most of her life in fear, and she lived to be 96 years old. So none of those fears came true, and she channeled this letter on fear, which surprised us. They're always surprising us, because who they are in this life is, when they shed the body, they shed a lot of those fears, those doubts, and that was why it was important for her to come through and speak about fear, because she suffered because of how much fear she was in during her life. But so she lived her life in a very simple life. She lived in Florida. She was from Queens in New York, and she moved down. She spent her life here, but for an example of her fears, she got in a car accident when she was young, and she never drove again for the rest of her life.
Oh my goodness!
She never got back in the car. That's the level of fear that she had, and so she. But she was married, and she and my grandfather moved to Florida at their early 50s, and then lived their life out there for the next 40 years. A very simple, very basic life. Nothing, dramatic or out of the ordinary. But her letter was very profound, very simple and very profound.
Is she writing above the level that she was able to communicate in during her life?
Yes, I feel that from her letter. Absolutely. I mean, I've had another relative who is not writing above. He's comes to me very much in the same way that he was, very narcissistic, and she's able to move. She's able to move past that, and I sense her, way of being is still simple. It's very hard to put an actual image onto that. It's just the feeling that I get. Very simple, but very much wanting to impart the message that it was a waste. It's not that her life was a waste, because no lives are wasted, but the amount of time she spent in fear feels like she wants to help all of us out and say, don't do what I did in that way.
And it's an illusion. I mean, to go past it, because it keeps us so limited. And I think in each of these letters, they speak to a different fear, and that's why we entitled the book Living Beyond Fear. And there's different letters and different messages that will resonate with different people, but it helps to, almost like they're sharing their story, and sometimes with greater maybe insight than they maybe seem to have here. Maybe it's that higher self is what Beth and I feel is coming through, but that they are sharing that with all of us.
Okay, so our our show. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So much.